the promise by Jeremy Hunt of a self-sufficient NHS with more British doctors rather than a system reliant on foreign-trained medics. But with junior doctors already at loggerheads with the Health Secretary, will his plans push the NHS further into crisis? Joining us now to discuss it is Haematology Registrar Dr Moosa Qureshi and member of the Junior Doctors Alliance, and from the Conservative think tank the Bow Group, Health Research Fellow Dr Jon Stanley. Hello to you both. Thank you for joining us here on Sky News this afternoon. Let's start with you in the studio, should we? So you've heard what we are expecting to hear from Jeremy Hunt when he addresses conference in just a short time, Dr Qureshi. What's your immediate reaction to that?
So my immediate reaction is that it's very good that we are trying to increase medical school places. The BMA has been calling for that for some time. However, we have to remember the background to this situation is that Jeremy Hunt has destroyed morale in the medical profession, particularly amongst junior doctors. So he's left himself in a situation where he really does have to recruit as many new doctors as possible, and this is a situation of his own making.
Dr Stanley?
Yeah, look, I think it's a really exciting announcement by Jeremy Hunt. We've been reliant in this country on foreign trained medics for a very long time. That's by and large been a choice. Many countries like Finland and Japan and South Korea don't do this, and they deliver perfectly good healthcare. Yeah, it's a challenge in terms of morale in the medical profession. That's been low for a very, very long time. I think we're just going to have to see what impact this brings over the next 10 years. I think setting a date of maybe 2025 by not being reliant on overseas staff is ambitious, but it's a very, very welcome announcement.
It's going to be a very long lead-in, Dr Qureshi, isn't it? It takes a long time to train a doctor.
Indeed it does, and our fears are concerning what's going to happen immediately, because there is already an impotence for many junior doctors who are within the existing system to leave the country, just because they feel so demoralised by what is coming in our way. And there's going to be consultant contract negotiations coming up soon as well, which presumably are going to have a similar effect across the senior members of our profession. So the question is whether this is going to be insufficient and it's going to take too long to actually solve the problems that are going to result.
And presumably added to that, Dr Stanley, is the fact that the hint from our Prime Minister during party conference that foreign doctors that are here at the moment will eventually be asked to leave the country.
I've not heard her say that. I've heard her say that in the future we'll be less reliant on new recruits. We're clearly short of medical staff in this country. I can't see why there'd be any particular wish to remove doctors who are already practicing, already are delivering a very, very good service. So I've not heard that.
We should make an exception for doctors, is that what you're saying? If we do decide that foreign workers need to leave the country after Brexit, we should make an exception for doctors.
Well, it's not a case of making an exception for doctors. If people are working here already and delivering a good quality of service, there is no reason for them to leave. They're clearly good enough to work here now under existing legislation. As I said, if we continue to have a shortage, it makes no sense in removing people from the register.
I think one of the key aspects of this problem that we have to recognise is that doctors are highly motivated professionals who really love to do their job, love to look after patients. You don't actually have to open the door to let more doctors into this profession. What you need to do is create an environment, rather than beating them with a stick, where you actually try to create a nicer professional environment for them where they're able to do their job and they're able to look after patients. So the key problem here is that Jeremy Hunt has demoralised staff in the NHS incredibly, and for him then to try to put a sort of patch on this open wound by saying he's going to add 1,500 medical students a year really doesn't cut it.
Dr Stanley?
I don't think it's fair to go after any particular personality on this. As I said, morale has been low for a very, very long time in the NHS for a variety of reasons. And for people that are thinking about leaving the profession to go abroad, that's probably one of the worst things you can do to the profession. If doctors are struggling at the moment, to see their colleagues talk openly about leaving for better climes abroad, I think that only worsens the morale. It certainly doesn't improve it.
So I certainly agree that this is demoralising for junior doctors, this situation. I have to emphasise that doctors are people who have for many years gone out of their way to look after patients to the best of their ability, and this really is a situation where they feel they've been pushed so far that some of them are feeling that they cannot continue to offer good healthcare in this country and therefore cannot continue to function in this country. That's a reflection of the government's policies rather than the doctors not having a vocation or a desire to do the best for patients.
Dr Stanley?
Yeah, but you also have a very large number of doctors leaving for Canada and Australia that have younger populations than ours. They're wealthier than we are, and so you will have better terms and conditions abroad. And I do welcome the suggestion by Jeremy Hunt that there should be at least some clawback into junior doctor contracts in the future. So when our training is provided by the taxpayer, if we do choose to take a better offer abroad, we should at least provide some compensation for the taxpayer as a consequence of that.
Seems fair, Dr Qureshi. And also the suggestion, again, we believe that the Health Secretary is going to make is that a requirement that doctors spend at least 4 years working for the NHS after they graduate. Seems fair enough.
So the first thing just to mention is that this won't actually have any effect on the existing problem. This is future medical students who finish medical school. They will have to work 4 years in the country, and that doesn't before they can actually freely leave the country. But again, I would like
in the NHS.
Yes, exactly.
Fair enough.
Well, again, I would say that the whole philosophy behind this is that you are trying to beat them rather than a carrot is always better than a stick when you've got a highly motivated.
Apprenticeship, isn't it? When I did an apprenticeship on my local newspaper, I had to work for that newspaper because they paid for me to get through my apprenticeship. If we're paying for doctors to get through their degree at medical school, then presumably as a result they should stay within the NHS.
You have to bear in mind that junior doctors in any case are often hugely in debt when they finish medical school. They're paying up to £60,000 in fees just to go through medical school, and that's just the student fees. In addition to that, they are in that profession as a vocation. They have gone into this as highly motivated individuals. Again, I repeat that to beat them with a stick is not the right approach for a highly motivated workforce.
Dr Stanley?
I don't think asking people to pay back costs that have been paid on their behalf is beating them with a stick. You know, I've got a great sympathy for many of my colleagues, but I've heard too many of them now, as I've said before, defending the NHS all the way to the departure lounge, and then suddenly they're gone, and the doctors that are left behind simply have to take up the slack and work even harder. So the idea that emigrating is a solution to junior doctors' problems is hardly a credible one.
Final thought, Dr Qureshi.
So our final thought is that really our main concern is patient healthcare. We feel that the entire medical profession is being demoralised. First the government went for junior doctors, now they're going to go for consultants, and in between those two professions they're bringing about policies that are going to demoralise medical students and dissuade them from going into the medical profession. This is really going to do huge damage to the NHS.
And Dr Stanley, we can't afford that, can we? Final thought from you?
No, we can't. You know, healthcare is very important. It's very important as well that we as doctors don't try and drag other issues like the junior doctor contract dispute into this. This is about strategic long-term planning. You have to remember, Jeremy Hunt's quite unusual as Secretary of State. He's been in post for over 4 years. That's not usual for a Secretary of State. So what we're actually seeing is a lot more of a strategy being developed long-term rather than tactically trying to firefight day-to-day issues, which is what British people are used to from government. They're not actually used to a real strategy being developed for future workforce planning.
Gentlemen, it's good to talk to both of you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.